Yeah, you tell me when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Good morning and welcome to the this press conference. Welcome members of the media to this very important press conference, especially as it is taking place just a few days before the general elections 2020. We found it necessary to call this press conference, this very important press conference, because with just a few days away, the general elections 2020, many of you all will be going to vote. And there are a number of misinformation that is being peddled out there, in particular by the Minister of Energy, Minister Franklin Khan, as well as the Prime Minister himself. And as the Oilfield Workers Trade Union, we felt we have a duty and a responsibility to respond to that type of misinformation so that the public will be properly informed with regards to the situation as it relates to the acquisition of the refinery and port. I want to first start with Mr. Khan's statement, where he is reported as stating that they will not be bullied. If anyone is a bully, it is him and his government, because it was him and his government who took the decision to shut down Petrotrin and send home all of the workers and brought pain and suffering to over 65,000 people. They seriously injured the southern economy, and of course they did this all as an act of vindictiveness, as an act to attack the Oilfield Workers Trade Union. They brought this type of pain and suffering and hardship where people would have lost their house, their cars, and in some cases even their lives. Up to now, the southern economy cannot even catch itself, and even in terms of the national economy, we are still struggling for foreign exchange. That, along with the misinformation that he, in particular, and his government in general, the kind of misinformation they peddle about the Petrotrin worker. If the country would recall, leading up to the closure, Minister Khan led a campaign, a vicious campaign, against hard-working Petrotrin workers. And you know what was the net effect of that? Up to this day, many of these workers cannot get a job because of how Minister Khan and his government demonize the Petrotrin worker. That is bullying. So my message to you, Minister Khan, this morning is that, in fact, you and your government are the bullies. I would like to now turn my attention to statements that would have been made by the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. The Prime Minister has been up and down on the campaign trail, making all different types of statements, many of which are inaccurate. He continues to peddle misinformation as it relates to the acquisition process. Misinformation as it relates to the Oilfield Workers Trade Union. So we would like to set the record straight. First thing, the Prime Minister is very well aware that they did not restructure Petrotrin. They closed the company down. Petrotrin is not operational at all. In fact, all of the workers, and we would remember that infamous statement, all, just a few days after the Prime Minister himself was trying to say you could open your fridge and close your fridge, we are not closing down Petrotrin. A few days later, the chairman of the board made it clear to all and sundry, all the workers were sent home. They formed 4 new companies. It's not Petrotrin 2.0. It is 4 completely separate new companies. TPHL, Guaracara, Paria, and Heritage. Now, any person with a little bit of common sense would say that is not a restructuring. You've closed down one company called Petrotrin, and you have started 4 new companies. So we want to just make that point very clear, that the PNM government, led by Dr. Keith Rowley, closed down the Petroleum Company of Trinidad and Tobago. When you talk about restructuring, the union's proposal was restructuring. Let us just make that absolutely clear. It has always been the position of the Oilfield Workers Trade Union that the Petroleum Company of Trinidad and Tobago required restructuring. In fact, the union would have had a meeting with the Minister of Energy in December 2016, and then a meeting with the Prime Minister himself when the union called for the restructuring of Petrotrin. That has always been the union's plan. In fact, we would recall that on the 3rd of April 2018, the union and the board were able to hammer out a memorandum of agreement to restructure the company. So when the Prime Minister says that the union's proposal was to treat with Petrotrin issues 2 years down the road, there can be nothing further from the truth, and the Prime Minister knows that, because he sat in meetings with the Oilfield Workers Trade Union as far back as February of 2017, when the union said to him, Prime Minister, the company needs restructuring. The union's proposal, which would have been the alternative plan to the closure of Petrotrin, never talked about treating with Petrotrin issues 2 years down the road. It was a plan to save Petrotrin in that moment. It talked about quick wins. It talked about ramping up production. It talked about restructuring the company into different business units. And very importantly, the union's proposal talked about the refinancing of the debt that he is up and down Trinidad and Tobago talking about. The union's proposal was that that debt should be refinanced, and in fact, the memorandum of agreement of the 3rd of April 2018 was going to be a key instrument to assist the board to go to the bondholders so that they can refinance the debt. In other words, Trinidad and Tobago, that company did not have to close down. That company could have been restructured. In fact, the union's proposal had in mind that some 1,700 workers were going to retire by the first quarter of 2019. And that would have been natural attrition. And the union saw that as an opportunity to look at the various work processes, how those things can be improved. And the union would have been prepared to have working sessions with the company in order to address those issues. Those were things that were part of the proposal. And the Prime Minister knows that as well. So the misinformation that he is spreading is intentional. I would like to also state, as we talk about the restructuring of Petrotrin and what transpired, when we think about it, the union have been asking the question for a long time, Prime Minister, can you tell Trinidad and Tobago who recommended the closure of Petrotrin? And I think that that is a question that maybe members of the media need to press him on more, because he has never said to Trinidad and Tobago who recommended. Because you had a Lashley committee, high-level committee, set up by the Prime Minister himself. They submitted a report on the 6th of June, which would have been 2017. The Cabinet Energy Subcommittee met and reviewed it. That report never recommended closing the company. Now, I want us to all bear in mind that the points that the Prime Minister is making about the debt and that the company running losses, etc., everyone knew that, including members on the Lashley Committee, including the union, which is why we talk about restructuring in the first place. So that is a non-issue. So they were seeing the same things the Prime Minister was seeing, but they never recommended closure. Solomon and Associates International, one of the world's top technical organizations dealing with energy issues, in particular oil refineries, etc. They had a report, they did an extensive study. In those recommendations, nothing about closing the company. McKinsey report, nothing about closing the company. And this is key one. The chairman, Mr. Wilfred Espinet, whilst giving evidence in the court matter that the union brought against the company to stop it from closing, admitted that the board never recommended closing the company. So, on the eve of these elections, Prime Minister Dr. Rowley, we are calling on you again to tell this country who recommended the closure of Petrotrin. We would like to propose that one of the reasons why you would have jumped to such a decision had to do with events that unfolded on June 19, 2018. Because how else do you explain that the union and the board hammered out a memorandum of agreement for restructuring the company, outlining timelines, etc. That is in April. And by July, the cabinet is approving the closure of Petrotrin. And by August, the board is announcing to the union, and therefore to the country, that they plan to close Petrotrin. I would like to draw members of the media your attention to events that unfolded on June 19, 2018, and remind Trinidad and Tobago that on the Labor Day platform, President of the Joint Trade Union Movement did a performance appraisal on the People's National Movement and the Prime Minister. This was the poll card that was displayed on Labor Day 2018. And you would see JTAM poll card, performance appraisal card on the People's National Movement. The President of the Joint Trade Union Movement, Comrade Ansel Roger, gave an extremely comprehensive presentation and an analysis of the performance of the government. And in that presentation, he outlined some key areas. Crime, where on Labor Day platform, the JTAM poll card gave the People's National Movement a failing grade on crime. On that Labor Day platform, the Joint Trade Union Movement President, using this poll card, gave the government a failing grade on the economy, a failing grade on labor, a failing grade on health, a failing grade on education, and the final one was a careful and comprehensive analysis of the performance of the Prime Minister himself as a leader in this country, and gave his performance a failing grade. That was on June 19, 2018. And 1 month later, Cabinet is approving a decision to close the Petroleum Company of Trinidad and Tobago. And in August, you have the board coming to the union, August 28, to inform the union that they intend to close the Petroleum Company of Trinidad and Tobago. One just has to look at the facts, the chronology of events, and as the President General of the OWTU said in a recent press conference, connect the dots. And when you connect the dots, you would see that what you had was a decision that was meant to spite the Oilfield Workers Trade Union and cause pain and suffering of over 65,000 people, and plunge the country into foreign exchange crisis, hurting families. And that falls squarely on the shoulders of the Prime Minister himself. But notwithstanding that, the Oilfield Workers Trade Union, recognizing what was happening, decided that it had to save Trinidad and Tobago. And it is in that spirit and a sense of duty and patriotism that the Oilfield Workers Trade Union took up what was meant to really be our bluff. But the OWTU called the bluff, formed a company, Patriotic Energies and Technologies Company Limited, and decided to partake in an international bidding process, and won that bid fair and square. And why we decided that it was crucial for Trinidad and Tobago, for the Oilfield Workers Trade Union to form this company and take part in the bidding process in order to acquire the refinery and the port, I would like to now turn the attention of the media to what can be seen only as the benefits of Patriotic acquiring the refinery and the port. It showed great courage, strength, and love for country and people that the OWTU would utilize its resources, its own resources, to ensure that that important asset falls in the hands of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and not some foreign multinational or 1%, and that it is done for and on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So what will be some of the benefits? And these are benefits that the President General of the OWTU have been outlining ever since Patriotic was launched. Starting off with the actual construction phase of the refinery, where you'll have to do a lot of work, turnarounds, and so on. 6,500 jobs in that construction phase. We're also talking about sustainable, permanent jobs on the startup of the refinery itself, because there's a lot of work to be done leading up to the actual startup, maintenance work, and as I said, turnarounds, etc. And this part is very crucial. We're going to bring back the very tried and tested and successful apprenticeship program for young people in order to bring hope to the young people of Trinidad and Tobago. With Patriotic acquiring the refinery and the port, we will resuscitate the southern economy, directly impacting over 65,000 people throughout. How? We are talking about revenues that can be earned for hardwares, contractors, service companies, food caterers, subcontractors, retail outlets, and other small businesses. All stand to benefit from this acquisition. This acquisition will also bring in very important and precious net foreign exchange, which the country so desperately needs. And of course, with this acquisition, Patriotic, as a true patriot, will contribute to art, sports, and culture, because we see these as critical to any society. And finally, as a true act of patriotism again, Patriotic Energies and Technologies Company Limited, acquiring this refinery and port, will be able to open up with an IPO for ordinary people to have shares in this massive success, so that ordinary men and women can share in this massive success, so that it's no longer a situation where there's only a small elite in this country who benefits over and over again, but we can break a historical anomaly and have ordinary people benefit and be part of a new paradigm of economic relations. And there are many more benefits that will be derived from Patriotic Energies and Technologies Company Limited acquiring the refinery and port. So we thought we would share with you, Trinidad and Tobago, through the media, one, responding to Minister Khan and the Prime Minister to clear up any misinformation that they may have peddled through the campaigning. And of course, to once again share with you Trinidad and Tobago the benefits of Patriotic Energies and Technologies Company Limited acquiring the refinery and port. Thank you.
Any questions? Taking some questions? All right. Well, I wanted to ask, well, seeing that as we're 2 days away from the general election and there's been no sign off on the agreement so far. So, what would be the message to sending out to what would be the message to voters? Would that be encouraging them not to vote for the PNM or?
At the start, when we first started this series of press conferences, because there has been a series, the President General made our position very clear as to why we're doing this.
Yeah.
This is simply to provide the country with correct, proper information so that people will make an informed decision. But you can't make an informed decision if you're not aware of the facts and the truth. That's what this.
So basically, as you say, you're putting the information out there, the correct information. So
that's correct.
And you're leaving it up for the ordinary person to decide what they use that when they factor that in when they go to the polling station. Because the other thing I wanted to ask is that I mean, you've seen what the other party has been putting out there in terms of what it would want to do for Petro-Trin, and exactly where does if they were to form the government after Monday, what's the viability of the agreement from that point, given what they've been putting out?
I think let us wait until the night of August 10th before we speculate. The OWTU Workers Trade Union, may I remind all and sundry, is 83 years old.
Right.
We have seen many elections. We've seen many parties come and go, but we're still here.
Right.
And you can be sure we will be here on the 11th. We can't say the same for others, but we will be here on the 11th of August.
Okay. Right. All right. Good to go.
Okay. Thank you very much,
Thanks again.
members of the media. Thank you very much, Trinidad and Tobago.